All right, folks, what's going on? It is MWS Swing Live, part of the Zone Coverage Podcast Network. We're coming at you on the eve of the trade deadline for Major League Baseball. I am your host, Brandon Warren. You can find me on Twitter at Brandon_Warren. You can find Midwest Swing and Midwest Swing, the podcast, at Midwest Swing Pod. And you can find at Zone Coverage MN for Zone Coverage. So we're going to break down, we can do some trade deadline stuff. We can do Twins game tonight stuff. We can do pretty much whatever you guys want. Obviously Twins coming out on the winning side of things over Cleveland, but I think what a lot of fans have been keeping an eye on now is the 4 trades the Twins have made over the last 3 days. And so with the trade deadline, let's see, about 17 hours away, we can break down pretty much whatever you guys want. As a reminder, send me your comments. Your comments on Periscope are fine, but send me your questions on Twitter at Brandon_Warren. I have a screen set up to read those. So again, if you have questions, at Brandon_Warren on Twitter. We've got a few of those that have come in so far today, but I want to get a few things out of the way before we get to that. First of all, I want to say thank you to Pick and Shovelware for sponsoring the program. You can find them pickandshovelware.com. MWS is your code for 15% off. It is Minnesota sports and casual lifestyle wear. All kinds of cool designs. Twins, we've got Wild, we've got Vikings, Timberwolves, all kinds of stuff. So again, pickandshovelware.com, keyword MWS. Also, big shout to Royce Lewis's mom, Cindy Lewis. She makes humility chains on Etsy. So go to Etsy and look for humility chains. I'm sporting the black one right now, but I have all 4 of them. Very, very cool designs. It's a cool way to not only look good with your chain, but support a good cause as she donates her earnings to a charity that she specifies on the site. So again, Etsy.com, look for humility chains, look for Cindy Lewis. Thank you so much for your service. The chains that Royce wears look terrific, and you can have your very own for a very reasonable price. So check out both of those. Anyway, I'm going to thumb through and see what some of these first questions are. It looks as though... Okay, Devlin Clark wants to know, what's your view on the trades from the standpoint of adding depth and quality to the minors in a season that's all but lost? In a season that's all but lost in the majors. I guess, for me, the one thing is that, part of it is the talent added. There's not certainly that much in the way of impact players, especially in the Zach Duke trade, which speaks to the level of impact that a left-handed pitcher as a specialist, because he's been pitched like a specialist this year. I know I've kind of banged the drum saying he's not a specialist all season long, but he's pitched like one this year. So if he is going to be used like a specialist, it's pretty clear that the Mariners do not value that all that highly. And so the Twins got an old for his level first base, third base prospect who has hit a little bit, as well as Chase DeYoung, a guy on the 40-man roster who's pitched a little bit in the big leagues, has a middling fastball, but is probably more known for his curveball. So, yeah, the return there not as significant. Lance Lynn, it all kind of boils down to how you feel about Tyler Austin, who has struck out about 40% of the time in the big leagues. Again, kind of abbreviated / truncated time in the big leagues. So we don't know a lot about Tyler Austin at this point, but at the same time, it's just a chance to see if there's a guy who can hit the ball far and maybe can turn into something more than just depth. Not a whole lot in terms of value there as far as high end, but he's got some thunder in his bat. If he could stay healthy, he can hit a little bit and can help you at first base, maybe in the outfield, though I don't think he's too good of an outfielder. So I think the biggest value in these trades is clearing the way for some other guys to get opportunities, whether it's Gabriel Moya or now Adalberto Mejia taking the rotation spot for Lance Lynn. But also whoever they decide to call up for tomorrow's game, knock on wood, I hope it's Trevor May, but whoever is the pitcher that gets the roster spot vacated by Zach Duke is going to be intriguing. Nick Anderson, another good pick if they wanted to go off the 40-man roster. But they do have some options. Alan Buznitz is down there, Tyler Duffy, and a few other guys that they could go for as well. So I don't know necessarily that it's about depth or quality for those guys, but it is some bodies that, if one of those guys turns into even a decent big leaguer, that's a fairly good trade. And, the Eduardo Escobar deal, too, seemed more like quantity over quality for me. I really do think that the takeaway, though, is that the Ryan Pressly deal brought back a couple prospects who could be fairly interesting. And I did see Johan Duran made his debut for, I think it was Cedar Rapids tonight, and threw fairly well. So, one piece coming back for Escobar who could be fairly interesting. But, yeah, again, the Pressly deal, which was Celestino and Alcala, I think is probably going to be the money deal, at least unless they move Brian Dozier, which, again, 17 hours to the deadline or thereabouts, 16 and a half. Lots of things can still happen. I'm sure that Dozier's still in play. I'm sure that Fernando Rodney's still in play. I don't know anything more than that, honestly. It seems like that's probably about it. Again, reminder, if you want to send me questions, Twitter, @Brandon_Warren is going to be the best way to get those answered. Though I did see Matt Dolly from Zone Coverage, one of our brothers over there, ask if Dozier's gone. At this point, I don't know. I mean, it sounds like the Twins want quite a bit. I think that's the price that the Milwaukee Brewers balked at before trading Brett Phillips plus Lopez to the Royals for Mike Moustakas. For me, it's hard to value Dozier more than Moustakas at this point, but apparently that's where the Twins were at in terms of what they were asking for compared to what the Royals were ultimately able to get. So, I don't know. Again, I don't know what the asking price looks like now compared to a week ago when they maybe started taking phone calls on Dozier, but it'll be interesting to see. There's still a little bit of time, and I'm going to have Twitter up, not only during this show, but as I continue to do my work tonight. I'm going to write a recap for the Twins game and a couple of other things. So, yeah. But again, back to Devlin's question before we move on. As far as the trades for depth and quality in the minors, I mean, again, it's more shuffling the deck chairs and giving some other guys chances that might not have had it otherwise. Keep in mind, too, Michael Pineda is due to come back at some point or make his Twins debut, I guess you could say. Irvin Santana, I think, could be on the way out, though I don't think it's terribly likely. And who knows, maybe he could be a waiver deal in August as well. So a couple things to think about there. Let's see here. What do we got for a question? You guys have been pretty good about getting these questions in, so I really do appreciate that. Travis Awney wants to know who is replacing Lance Lynn on the Twins roster. Yeah, I suspect we may find out here tonight, and maybe if I upload my or pull up my if I pull up my tweets, maybe I can see it. Yeah, nothing yet though, but I don't know. I certainly again hope it's Trevor May. I do think Trevor May deserves the chance to come up. And not only that, but he missed all last year with Tommy John surgery. It really doesn't make sense for him to miss the rest of this year and not see some big league time. So, I don't know. I think that it'd be wise to get him back up here sooner rather than later. And frankly, I don't think September is enough time to get him up to speed. So, hopefully that's the case. Hopefully Trevor May is the guy coming back up. I know that he's looked fairly good recently, and so I think he deserves a chance to give it a look. I did see somebody ask about the 40-man stuff as far as implications of these trades. I believe Chase DeYoung is the only one who will be on the 40-man roster. Tyler Austin too. So DeYoung and Austin will be on there. Austin is actually just switching clubhouses with Rochester, facing Scranton Wilkes-Barre right now. So they'll have a couple guys on there. And two, the Twins, if they opt to try take Austin off their 40-man roster, would risk losing him because he was DFA'd and cleared waivers and was outrighted by the Yankees already. So he can refuse a second outright. So I suspect he'll get a chance sooner rather than later. It might be tied to what happens with Logan Morrison over the rest of the season, or even just a look in September to see what he's capable of. So, again, who's coming up to replace Lynn, Travis asked. I still think there's a fairly good shot that it's Trevor May or maybe Alan Buznitz. But, it's going to be fun to see how this bullpen plays out because we've grown so conditioned to Trevor Hildenberger and Ryan Pressly and Zach Duke getting some of these work in tighter games, and now it's Matt McGill getting that kind of work, and I think it was tonight's game, but it's going to totally turn this bullpen on its head, and all those things that people have been asking about, can Matt McGill get big outs, that sort of thing, they're going to try to find that out, for lack of a better term, because they have to. They're going to have to thrust guys into roles that they haven't done all season long. Addison Reed, again, to being back will help, but they didn't want to throw him into a fire, I think, right away. So, yeah, I don't know if we'll find out tonight or if it won't be until tomorrow, but it will be fun for me, particularly, to see who's coming up. Andrew Pint says, what message does Escobar turning down an extension and then being traded in Lynn, who signed as a free agent, being felt, send to the team and possible free agent targets? Okay, first of all, unless we really know what Escobar turned down, maybe it was just a feeling out process, and maybe the Twins just said, look, if you don't want this number, that's fine. Let's meet again in the off season, and we can work something out. Maybe not necessarily work something out, but see what the market dictates, because you don't know what the market's going to be like, if it's going to be a Zach Cozart contract or an Eduardo Nunez deal or somewhere in the middle. Which isn't to say he's going to get Nunez money. Nunez's market was depressed because of his knee issue. But if the market is a little bit cold on Escobar, which if you look at his track record, it's not exactly strong enough for him to command huge money, huge years, even though he's been very solid this year. Maybe the Twins let the market dictate what they're willing to pay him or the number that they're comfortable with. So I don't know that he necessarily turned down the Twins. He didn't necessarily turn down fair money, but maybe they just approached him and said, what kind of money are you looking at this moment? And maybe he just said, look, I want to hit the market. I'm not even 30 yet, and so I want a chance to do that. So I don't think it means a whole lot. Meanwhile, Lance Lynn signing as a free agent means virtually nothing because it was a one-year deal. Now, when the Twins were talking, or when fans wanted them to trade Josh Willingham in the midst of his first year of a 3-year deal, I still think there's bad mojo there for your chance of signing free agents. I think it may be a little overblown. I don't know if it's necessarily a huge deal, but I do think that if you sign a guy to a 5-year deal like Irvin Santana, 4-year deal, and then trade them in the first year of that deal, that looks really bad. The optics of that are obviously very bad. So that would probably leave you out in the dark, at least as far as bigger free agents. You're always going to have the 1-year or 2-year guys that aren't that big of a deal. But I don't think either of those things were a huge deal. And I think this offseason is going to be a lot of fun because there'll be extension talks for guys like Eddie Rosario. They still might try to get below market deals with Buxton and Kepler or whatever. Ken Rosenthal says the Red Sox have gotten Ian Kinsler, so that's going to take a Brian Dozier suitor out of the mix. Tweet that quick here. So, breaking news, play the sounder, Ian Kinsler heading to the Red Sox. So, Angels giving up on Kinsler for the time being, or at least maybe giving up on the season for the time being. Or I don't know what I'm saying. Sorry, I'm trying to read two things at once. But, yeah. Anyway, let's go back to a few more of these questions. Matt Liefeld wants to know, is it impossible for the Twins to catch Cleveland? No, but I mean, it's like a 1 or 2% chance. I mean, if last year was unlikely, this year is even more so. But keep in mind, too, the Twins never caught Cleveland last year. They fought the war of attrition for the second wildcard spot. As you might remember, when the Twins started winning towards the end of last season, it was, the Angels wilted, and, a few other teams just never really jumped into the mix. It felt like the Twins were going to be battling 4 or 5 teams at one point, and then it just kind of, everything kind of fizzled. And so it ended up not being such a big race. The Twins ended up clinching it, and it wasn't like they sprinted to the finish like Cleveland did for the division or that sort of thing. So, again, I'm not saying it's impossible for the Twins to catch Cleveland. And frankly, let's get this out of the way. You look at all these trades, and people are all upset and that sort of thing. I get it. Escobar's a very, very galvanizing force in that clubhouse, both for players, fans, everything. But at the end of the day, there's no guarantee that he'll play better than Miguel Sano the rest of the way. He might, but keep in mind, Sano is clearly the superior player for the long run. Escobar has some regression in his profile from the fact that he really does still swing at everything. And, that's part of what made him great this year, but that also is part of what made him a potential regression factor. is that, a lot of times he's 0-2 because he swung at two pitches that aren't close. Now, he's managed to avoid that third strike somehow, some way, all season long. Can he do that over the long haul? I don't know if we know that. So, we'll find out. With that said, I think that Gabriel Moya could be better than Zach Duke the rest of the way. I think whoever replaces Lance Lynn can do what Lance Lynn did. I had high hopes for Lance Lynn. I still think there's a chance he figures it out someplace else. But are you telling me Adalberto Mejia can't give you a 5.0 ERA over half a season? He did it for a full season last year, or 18 starts or whatever it was. Fernando Romero can come up and give you that sort of production. So, what else do we have? You've got, who am I missing? Like Ryan Presley, obviously very, very good. A little polarizing with the home runs last year. This year he struggled with giving up hits and that sort of thing. So I just think that, that's not that huge of a deal either. So Wikipedia says, given the replacements for the departures, is it possible to technically say they haven't given up on the season yet? Yeah, I do think so. I think it's possible to say that for sure. I don't think this team is that much less talented. Granted, and I think, and I wrote this for zone coverage yesterday, you can't bring back Miguel Sano while still having full-time playing time for Eduardo Escobar, Jorge Polanco, and Brian Dozier. Escobar was a trade chip. Polanco needs to play every day because he's part of the future. Dozier's a trade chip. And so you can't bench those guys and hurt their value while getting Sano back up here. And again, I'm aware that they made the move because of how things panned out. But eventually the Twins had to make room for Sano one way or the other. And again, too, that's why I'm not quite so convinced that the Twins are going to be looking to bring him back. However, maybe they view Miguel Sano as a first baseman and then Escobar can play third. Maybe they view Dozier as leaving and they can bring Escobar back to play second. I still think there's a chance. I just don't know that they're necessarily as interested in Escobar as fans maybe have been led to believe. So, that's not to say that he's not in the mix for them. It's not to say they won't look at him this offseason in free agency. But I just don't think that it's a guarantee that he's going to be as interested in them as they are in him, or vice versa. And so we'll see what happens. Let's see what else we have here. Viking King 888 says, what's a good trade for Dozier? And actually, so what somebody else said too was there are a limited number of fits as far as contenders. And I mean, that's always been true with second basemen. And so, obviously the Dodgers are out of it now with Machado moving Muncy and Turner and all that stuff. So that one kind of hurt from the get-go, which has already been now, 7 or 8 days, something like that. So yeah, it's kind of dwindling. I think I saw San Francisco on that list. I know that Joe Panik has had a tough season. I don't think he's healthy right now. And then I did see one other team listed. Yeah, the tough thing is finding a fit. You have to smooth over the fact that he's had such a rough go of it this season, now over 100 games into the season. And then, two, we got to get something back that actually makes sense. And so does it make sense to move Brian Dozier for, like what Kinsler brought back, which was, I just saw it here, Jerez, I think it's Jerez and Buttry. That's a fun one to say. Are those two guys the Twins would have wanted if they were making a move to send him to Boston? I think it's Williams, Jerez, and I don't know Buttry's last name. So Casey Stern brings up a good point. MLB Network Radio. He says, what about Dozier to Seattle and then D. Gordon to center field again? That makes sense. Maybe you would have talked about that while working on the Duke deal, but I don't know. I'm seeing some people saying that Kinsler brought back 2 minor league relievers. The last time the Twins traded an infielder for 2 minor league relievers, that did not go well, and I think people remember that. It was J.J. Hardy, so we don't want to go down that road again. But yeah. Again, people at Brandon_Warren on Twitter, send me your questions there. They stay up longer so I can actually see them. They disappear on the Twitter app, or the Periscope app, and so I would much, much rather see you tweet them to me at Brandon_Warren so I can actually read them. So, yeah, good trade for Dozier. I don't know if it's out there. Maybe you get someone's 10th prospect in a decent farm system, but I don't think it's really out there. So, I see someone asking if I'm going to miss Lance Lynn. No, I will not miss Lance Lynn. We'll just leave it at that. Matt Liefeld wants to know, is this Joe Mauer's last season? He says the Tyler Austin trade, etc., etc. I don't know. I don't even know if Joe Mauer knows that this is his last season at this point. I think he's going to see how he feels at the end of the year health-wise. And I suspect he'll come back for another year, and maybe it'll just be one. But I don't know. I do think they'll welcome him back. I think they'll sign him to a Kevin Garnett-style deal that is maybe a little more than you'd expect, but not egregious or exorbitant, maybe $10 million per year for 2 years with the idea that he could, he could retire. He could retire halfway through the contract. So we'll see what happens, but I do think that Mauer will. I think it's maybe 55-45 that he'll be back next year. But again, I don't know. I just don't think that. I don't think that it's anybody really knows right now. Somebody asked me if they missed my King Felix comment. I think King Felix is cooked. I'm sorry. I think it's been, 3 years since he's been good. I'm not feeling a Justin Verlander rebound. I want Felix to rebound for this one very simple reason. It's very selfish. He's 3 months younger than I am. So if any player starts getting old and I hear of it and they're younger than me, I will find you. I will hunt you down. I will hurt you. Okay? No, I'm kidding. But it's, if he ever bounces back and has the Justin Verlander thing where he looks done, or at least looks significantly, return to form, I don't think that's going to be the kind of thing where he's going to rebound like Verlander did. I think I don't want to say it's more Tim Lincecum, but I do think it's more Lincecum than it is Verlander. So I hate to say that. Minnesota Twin Pinions wants to know, if Brian Dozier is dealt, who plays second base, Adrianza, Gordon, or Polanco? I want to say Gordon, but I'm not sure that they put him on the 40-man roster until September. So probably Adrianza, but then they probably have to re-add like Taylor Motter to the 40-man roster, and I don't think anybody's really enthused about that. So who knows? Maybe they get back a middle infielder in the trade too, even just a so-so guy. So I don't know. If they trade Dozier, I would suspect Polanco is an interesting thought because they could start Adrianza at short, and that would probably be your best defensive lineup. And Adrianza's played fairly well this year, but I would hope it would be Gordon, at least to see what he's got. So I don't know. We'll see. Matt Trueblood wants to know if Sano is looking like a third baseman to me since his return. So I haven't seen a whole lot of him out there, and so I don't really have a good perspective of it at this point. I think the best thing right now, though, is that they have time to really let him kind of feel his way around out there. The other big thing is that then they can go from there and consider moving him to first base with Mauer's contract expiring, or DH. I mean, okay, so Dan Hayes just said the Twins are going to add a pitcher tomorrow to replace Lynn. So we'll see who it is. I'm sure it'll leak sometime tonight. Anyway, there's enough time in the rest of the season for the Twins to see if Sano can adjust to third base. And I think the biggest issue right now is the leg. I don't think the weight is so much the issue for third base. It's a future issue, and it's something that they want to get under wraps and get out in front of. But for now, it's the leg. How does it affect his mobility, so on and so forth. And so I think for now he'll be okay. I think it's going to be, it's going to be a work in progress. And it's the same deal. Polanco, in a lot of ways, is a work in progress at short, too. And they made it work last season, at least until Sano got hurt. So, I don't know. I guess the best part that we see there is that he's got time to work through some kinks, and they don't have to be hasty about moving him off third base for, bringing back Escobar, bringing up Gordon and moving pieces around there, re-signing Dozier. Whatever it is they decide to do, they've got time to kind of work their way through it. So I hope that's not a cop-out to that question. But Jimmy Dosen says, do I think Mitch Garver has shown enough to trust him as the opening day starter next year? No. Defensively, he still is not there for me. And one thing I noticed tonight was that he left a lot of strikes out there. If you want to know what I mean, go back to the Jose Ramirez at bat in the 9th inning. They got Ramirez out, but there was a pitch he kind of stabbed at that I think was 96 down in the zone that should have been a strike. And then there were at least 2 other instances tonight where I saw pitches that should have been strikes that I thought Bobby Wilson probably would have framed better. And frankly, I think we can all see the defensive difference. When you look at their offensive numbers, you rack your brain and wonder why Bobby Wilson plays over Mitch Garver ever. And keep in mind, I think Garver started 8 of the last 11 games, and Molitor's, starting to favor Garver more. Garver has been on the long side of the platoon just narrowly over the last 70 games or whatever it's been. It's not been by much, but that gap is starting to grow. But no, but I do think Garver and Castro can platoon, and the nice thing is with Garver making $500,000 next year, you've got a fairly strong catcher platoon for $850,000. Castro held his own against lefties last year, but that's someone that Garver's going to mash. It will allow them to bring Garver along slowly next year defensively too, to find out if he's the guy in 2020. And so that's when Castro's deal is up. The tough thing is if they really wanted to go outside the organization, this year is the year that Yasmani Grandal is a free agent. I haven't looked at the free agent market the year after that, but this would be the time to go out and get a big time catcher if you wanted to spend big money on it. So, but I don't think they're going to spend $25 million on the catcher spot next year with Castro as a backup. So, it's just not going to happen. So, no, I don't think Garver is the starter going into next year, but I think he's maybe on the 45 side of a 55-45 platoon. Nothing wrong with that either, especially if he's a good receiver and can become a good receiver, because Castro obviously is fairly good at that. Let's see if we have anything else here. No. Okay, well, people have maybe 1 or 2 other questions. We can get to those, otherwise we'll call it a wrap. Quick recap, quick rundown. 4 trades for the Twins so far, maybe another 2 or 3 possible. I don't know if I've ever seen a more active Twins deadline as long as I've been watching this team, which is quite a while. But Thomas Brewer's asking where his question is. You got to send it on Twitter, man, at Brandon_Warren. I haven't seen it on there. Or maybe Twitter ate it. But, well, send it again. I see you tweeted. If you tweet it again, I'll answer it. But yeah, it's been an active deadline for the Twins, and I think that 4 deals is very very solid. But I do think I'll go on record. I think they make 1 more. Would it be Fernando Rodney most likely? Probably. I'm just not sure there's a Dozier suitor out there. I'm just not sure that anyone's going to give you anything for Irvin Santana. And I'm just not sure anybody on the market is buying a starter like Kyle Gibson when Chris Archer has more years of control, cheaper, further from free agency, which again, more years of control, but higher ceiling too. So I think if teams are going to, make a big trade, it's going to be for a Chris Archer type or a Kevin Gausman. Not that I think Gausman is particularly great right now, but if the teams want to add a starter with years of control, I don't know how close that Gibson is to the top of that list. So All right, Thomas Brewers, you got to get that question in here soon. David Heisler wants to know if the Twins would trade Dozier in the division if they thought they could re-sign him in free agency. So I suspect that's an Indians-based question, and then Kipnis could move to the outfield. I don't think the Twins would have any trouble, making a deal in the division no matter what. So I'm not sure how really worried they are about signing Dozier in the offseason either way. He's going to test the market. It comes at a very poor time for him with how his last few years have gone compared to this one. But I think the thing was that the Twins were always going to let him test the market. It just made the most sense for both sides. Imagine if Dozier had this season after signing a big extension with the Twins, say 4 years and $60 million or $70 million. It wouldn't be the Phil Hughes extension necessarily, but I think it would be, it would be universally panned by Twins fans, which is not that difficult of a connection to make. So, yeah, I think it's just it's a sense. It makes sense for the Twins and Dozier to let him hit the open market, regardless of if he ends up in Cleveland or San Francisco, Seattle, or maybe he just finishes the year with the Twins. We'll see what happens. All right, Thomas, we're going to end on Thomas Brewer's question. What trades do you think they will make before the deadline? Well, I really do think it makes sense to move maybe Rodney, but what are the offers going to look like? Free agent to be relievers, and Rodney can be a free agent at the end of the year. Not guaranteed that he will be, but they don't seem to be bringing back a ton. But again, Rodney's, 41, 42, something like that, 40? I think he's 40. There's no real reason to hang on to him either. So, I don't know. I think if they hadn't traded Presley, I think Rodney would be as good as gone. I think that they do want someone that can throw the ninth inning, for better or worse. And frankly, I don't know. I don't know who would close games if they trade Rodney. And again, that's not the primary concern. It'd probably be Hildenberger, and they'd probably bring up Buznitz to work as a middle reliever / maybe work his way up to a setup role. But I don't know that they want to go completely cold in the ninth inning if they're still believing that they can hang around in this thing. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens. If anything big happens tomorrow, we'll do another one of these. Otherwise, we'll catch up with you maybe later in the week. Folks, thank you so much for hanging out. It's been Midwest Swing Live. Check out Pick and Shovelware. Check out Humility Chains on Etsy. Thanks for hanging out. We'll catch you later. Peace.